What's happening, friends? Welcome to another live edition of Syracuse Sports. Syracuse football postgame presented by Crouse Health, the official healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. You got Brent and you got Javon Edmonds, and what a day it was at the JMA Wireless Dome. First half, not so good. Third quarter, not so good. But football games are won in the fourth quarter, and in this case, in overtime. And it took overtime for Syracuse to come back, escape an 11-point deficit, and knock off UConn by a final score of 27-20 at the Dome. Syracuse improves to 1-1 on the season, and we'll be getting right back at it against Colgate on Friday night at the Dome. Lots to go over today, including Steve Angeli leading that comeback for Syracuse, an interesting halftime tidbit that our colleague Chris Carlson found out that we'll share with you guys. Fran Brown had the team running sprints after the game. We have video proof of that. Not that the many people at the Dome didn't witness that event, but we'll show you the video of that. Some other players that stood out today, injury updates, and everything you need to know about this one here. And Javon, I want to start with this and get your thoughts on it here. But look, mea culpa, hand up. I was saying it to you in the press box. I tweeted it to the people. I texted it to our Syracuse Sports Insiders, who we will hear from coming up, that Fran Brown needed to put Ricky Collins in the game. All the signs were pointing to a quarterback change. Steve Angeli was struggling. He was airmailing passes. The offense was flat. He took a big shot in that game, and he seemed to be rattled by it physically. That team needed a spark, and that, to me, was a quarterback change. If the quarterback competition was that close in camp, as it had been indicated by everybody that saw it and all our reporting and everything that we knew, well, at some point, you've got to put the other guy in. There were plenty of opportunities that I thought a more mobile quarterback could take off and get some first downs. But then, like the Undertaker meme, Steve Angeli rises. He makes a 40-yard pass to Daryl Gill, leads a scoring drive. Defense gets the offense the ball back, leads a drive to take the lead, 20-17. Defense couldn't quite hold there. UConn did drive up the field as Skylar Bell was making catches left and right, and he did in this game. They tie it overtime. Angeli leads a scoring drive in overtime with a great throw and a great catch by Justice Ross Simmons in the corner of the end zone. And just when Steve Angeli is hanging off the ledge by one toe, and that toe is his pinky toe, and was about to fall, he leads the team in the most crucial moment of this game. Timing was everything, and now Angeli has the confidence of the coaching staff, the team, the fan base. They know he can do it. I mean, we'll be watching, and we'll see if he finds himself in another situation like this, Javon, but that's what a quarterback is supposed to do in those situations. All through camp, what we heard about Steve Angeli was a word that stood out more than any. The word bubble was composure. You couldn't shake this guy. And just at the moment when it seemed like you could shake the guy with the composure, he makes a moment here. And a win is a win. Syracuse pulls it out. And, that quarterback, I think, proved a lot on the field with still a lot to prove going forward here. But, those are the moments you practice. Those are the 2-minute drills. Those are the scenarios you come up with. And he passed the test when he absolutely needed to in this game.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I spoke to Sim Willis after the game, and he said that 40-yard grab by Gill was when he knew that Steve had gotten his mojo back, kind of, sort of. Which I found to be interesting because that drive stalled out and ended up in a missed field goal, the 48-yarder. And then the next drive was Angeli's pick to Brunson. Like in my eyes, maybe that was the play that Steve needed to show that he can still make a play in the game. But Steve said it takes one play to spark that offense and to get them to start putting a series together. And to me, that was the 20-yard catch by Hornsby. That drive started at the Syracuse 10. Hornsby gets the 20-yard catch. And then next thing you know, 4th and 4 is here. And Justice Ross Simmons, when you need it the most, 53-yard touchdown down the right sideline. I understood the thought process of possibly making a change at quarterback in that game because it looked like my reasons for saying Ricky should have been the starter back in camp.
Mm-hmm.
about to be validated in terms of they just need a guy who can use his legs to get himself out of trouble and avoid taking some hits. And Fran stuck with Steve. I wasn't calling for a change, but I did have in my mind this game does say Ricky Collins has to play against Colgate, right?
Which I think we're anticipating anyway, right? I mean, nothing against Colgate. Maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe this is a Syracuse team that can't look down on anybody, but I feel like Ricky's going to get on the field one way or the other, but maybe with more of a keen eye now, right?
Yeah, so that happens. Fran keeps Steve in there, and he just made it clear, like, Angeli is the starter. He said in the press conference, it's his moment and it's his team. And I really don't think we see Steve Angeli get benched this season unless he just can't go, like unless he's hurt or, the game's just completely out of reach. And I think showing that you had that much faith in Angeli is only going to pay dividends down the line. So did I understand the calls for Ricky? Sure. We heard fans chanting for Ricky, but Fran Brown is sticking by his word of it's Steve Angeli's team, and that's not changing anytime soon.
And that's a big call to make. That's the call the head coach makes. It can be a very lonely world when. And look, fans are fans. Fran had some great lines at that at the press conference. You love me, you hate me. I hear you, but it doesn't mean I have to listen to you, right? Like he hears what's coming from the stands. But that you nailed it there, Javon. That goes a long way. It goes a long way with everybody watching, the coaching staff, with Angeli himself, who's got to know. Look, he had a big drive in the college football playoff, but it's not like he went out and won that football game. It helped win that football game, but it wasn't Steve Angeli leading Notre Dame over Penn State. He's been in some big moments, right? But now, when Syracuse inevitably finds itself in this situation again, you proved it. This is not I have faith you can do it. It's I've seen you do it. And that's a big, big difference. And it spreads throughout the team. I think this team was starting to believe in Angeli, but because it was such a close race, like the team just has to have that moment. And Kyle McCord had those moments early for this. It was the second game of the season last year, Javon, when he made a throw against Georgia Tech, and shout out to my guy, Mike McAllister. I elbowed him hard when he made this throw. I went like this. I was like, man, that's an NFL throw right there. And Javon was sitting to my right today, so thankfully you did not receive any elbows in any moments, right? But Angeli at least showed, this is my moment to do this. It doesn't change the fact that in the first half, they had 4th and 2 twice, and the play calling was suspect, and they didn't convert there. They got into the red zone, 4 times and got 6 points out of it. There were some moments that Angeli has to improve on and be more consistent going forward here, but this is what you remember. 5 years from now, people are going to remember he led that drive, won the game, and that sends such a big message to this team. It sends a message to him, and it sends a message, at least, as you said, the only way now, I think, I shouldn't say the only way, but it just ups the how can I put this? It just ups the confidence that when they find themselves in that situation again, you got to ride with this guy. And that's a big message to send in that spot. Javon, despite the win, I saw something today I've never seen at the Dome.
Uh-oh.
I've seen it in a movie. Shout out to Miracle. I believe I heard Steve Angeli, United States of America, somewhere from that Dome field after the game, because I've seen that Herb Brooks skating his team after a win. So I do have video of this. So pardon to those of you just listening to this pod, but I want to show this. This is what happened after the game. Shout out to my guy, Christian de Guzman, for the video there. Yeah, that was the football team running sprints after the game. Fran saying, and I asked him, why'd you make the team run sprints? Did that come from you? Did that come from the team? And he said that there's a certain way Syracuse football is to look. It hasn't looked that way in the first 2 weeks. I like that we won the game, but we've got to look a certain way. So still sending a message despite the comeback and everything that they did. Javon, I've seen it in a movie, and the other thing it made me think of, I have participated in this as somebody that at one point in time was in the West Genesee School District and played West Genesee lacrosse. Here locally, Mike Masser, legendary lacrosse coach, one of the greatest lacrosse coaches of all time, certainly the greatest high school lacrosse coach of all time. We used to have to run the reservoir after games he was not happy about, including several wins. So I have participated in that. And this was when I was in the lower levels of West Genny. The other coaches made us do this too. So we would pull off. There's a big hill on the west side of Syracuse. I grew up right in the shadow of it, Westcott Reservoir. And we'd run the reservoir after wins. So I've been in that. I've seen that. I've seen the movie Miracle. I've never seen that in the Dome. I've never seen a Syracuse team do that, particularly after a win. So a unique message sent there by Fran and Javon. He just has, I don't think this is why he did it, but man, this has blown up. It is all over social media, and people are like, man, Fran Brown, look at this.
So,
incredible moment.
On3 has posted it. It has made its way into my group chat of friends from back home. One friend doesn't believe that it is authentic. My good friend Tyrese threat. Ty, I promise you, that is Fran.
Yeah, that's Fran.
And also, like, it's not foreign to me. I grew up playing basketball for some coaches that just were not afraid of, hey, listen, don't take your running shoes off before you go to the locker room. That's not how it's supposed to go. Like, I am a fan of that because I truly do think winning is not enough. How you win means a lot, and you don't accept anything in a win that you wouldn't accept in a loss. And, like, for all intents and purposes, that was not a clean game Syracuse played. It wasn't a good game that Syracuse played, period. And you have to send that message to your team like, hey, no, we're not going to just be content with winning the game. We have to look a certain way while we do it. It has to be clean. It has to be fundamental. It cannot be as sloppy as that game was, especially coming off a game where you spotted a team 17 points in the first quarter in week one. So, no, that is how you run a program. That is how you coach a team in any sport. You got up there, for 9 innings and your team had 15 strikeouts. Guess what? Go run the polls. You got out there for 4 quarters of basketball and your team committed 15 turnovers and shot 60% from the free throw line. Yeah, come on. Baseline. Right here. Then you've got, what was it? At some point, 9 drives, 4 reached the red zone. You got 6 points and 3 turnovers out of it. Yeah, you've got to run for a game like that. So I don't believe that was phony whatsoever. That is
I don't
how
either.
you coach an athletic program. Period.
I don't either. Fran just happens to do things that go viral sometimes. There's other things he does to intentionally go viral, like winners get washed and some of those things. But this was a moment in time. Here's the message. Yeah, we won. It was a stress test of a win is a win expression. Fran mentioned in the post game about he talks to Herm Frazier a lot about we just need one more point than the other team and getting the win, but also like I'm going to send you a message here about how this team got this win. And we were mathing in the press box. Okay, well, if you kick 2 field goals on those 4th and 2s and got the points, and Trip Woody missed a 48, what was a 43 or a 48 yarder?
48 yarder.
48
that was
yarder.
The same job that Gil had, the 40-yard catch. Yeah.
Correct. Not an easy kick, but missed it. So they would have had the lead, and you can what if it to death. You just run the scenarios in your head there. But the offense, you mentioned it, another slow start, but the difference was last week you're down 17-0. From there, it was 28-26. It was a game. Like you actually made it a game. It's just when you dig yourself that big of a hole, the final score 45-26 a week ago maybe looks worse than it was in some ways. Like they showed out in some ways after that horrid first quarter. It kept getting worse after that after the first quarter until they stepped up in the fourth quarter. And there's some guys that need shout-outs here today, Javon. Look, Dan Villari went out there today, made a lot of big catches, runs after the catch, tough to bring down, 7 catches, 104 yards, leads this team out there. Justice Ross Simmons, who told our colleague Chris Carlson he's gunning for 1,000 yards this year, right? You said it to me in the press box, made some NFL Sunday-like catches. He is so good on the sideline, the winning score, what ended up being the winning score, on the pylon, how he can stretch his body out and just, make catches in the phone booth, as they like to say. in the football world. He had 4 catches, 83 yards on the day, or 5 catches for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day for him. Look, Jack Stonehouse, when you've got a punter like that can just flip the field and rescue you when that offense was struggling and couldn't move the ball and 3 and out, and here we go, to flip the field like that and put pressure on UConn was huge. And another guy that I think deserves a big shout out is Antoine Delorier, the freshman linebacker, breaks up a 4th down pass, looking like he belongs out there. Look, I like Derek McDonald a lot. I've enjoyed talking to him. I think he's a great leader in that room. They're going to need Derek McDonald at some point. I'm just going to say that. Like, inevitably, the circle of life comes back. You're going to need him. But Delorier's outplayed him. You can see why he's on the field and just absorbed all that. And now, like Angeli, Javon, he's got a huge play in the back of his head that he can go to and say, I can do this, because I made that play against UConn and helped us win the game.
Yeah, McDonald has had a rough 2 weeks, particularly in coverage. Last week was rough for him. Saw him give up his leverage for a touchdown. This week gave up a 34-yard catch to Edwards, I believe. It's been rough for him. It has. That position has belonged to Gary Bryant and Antoine Delorier. And like you said, Delorier, big plays in the last two plays of overtime. You can't ask for more of a confidence boost as a freshman. And with JRS, I mean, that brother should be known as Superman in Syracuse right now. There's back-to-back weeks where he has made the plays that have kept Syracuse's hopes alive. I mean, he drew some pass interferences that kept that game from getting away last week and had some big yardage catches. And then this week, I mean, his touchdown down the sideline, that was the jolt. That was the jolt. If Syracuse doesn't get that 4th down, I am confident in saying that game's over. And then, just a one-on-one, quick out route in the end zone, and he gets another one. That is the X receiver right now until someone else says so. Jonte Cook's good. Derrick Gill Jr. is good. Justice Ross Simmons is the X receiver.
Deuce Chestnut led Syracuse with 8 tackles today. Gary Bryant with 7 tackles out there today. You mentioned this to me in the press box. Anwar Sparrow was getting some more run out there at linebacker today. David Reese had some great pressures, and Fran mentioned it in the postgame. I think he said it to Elijah Robinson. Why did we bring David Reese here? To get pressure on the quarterback. We saw that from him. Moultrie Goddard, 2 huge tackles on special teams. That deserves a shout out today. Am I missing anybody that deserves a little shout out from this game, Javon? Because while there were certainly some moments here Syracuse would love back, it was that bend but don't break mentality again, like we saw last year. Just at that moment when that defense was ready to break, Delorier made a play. They made a tackle. They got UConn off the field a lot, 3rd and out in the second half. And just when you pinch them in that moment of clarity, they make the play that they need to, despite some issues. No Devin Grant out there today. Travion Mack out late, injury in practice this week. They didn't even know he wasn't going to go until Thursday. 2 guys in at left tackle for him. Bertrand starts. Josh Miller comes in. So we saw a lot of shuffling of the deck of the offensive line right up to the start of the season, Javon, and it paid off today because they had to shuffle the deck a lot with some injuries and obviously some coverage breakdowns that were happening out there.
Yeah. In the top of the shout-outs, got to give Dan Villari his shout-out. Great game today. Great game. And a very, very, very under-the-radar one. Will Nixon. Will Nixon opened up the run game. Just running Yasin Willis between the tackles was not working. The box was being stacked and couldn't do anything about it. And then Nixon, being the speed guy, started to open things up and allowed Willis to get back in there and do his thing. So I did want to give Will Nixon his respect. But the O-line was intriguing to me because through 2 weeks, that unit has given up 8 sacks. 2 of those have been strip sacks that have been recovered by the defense. But also, so Travion Mack gets hurt. McQuill Veteran starts, and then let's call it like this. He got benched for Josh Miller. He got benched.
He did.
So maybe Syracuse does not have as much depth as it thought, and which would mean I was wrong about my biggest surprise, which would in the season predictions story that we did, which would be depth of the O-line. If Miller starts on Friday, that's going to be 3 different offensive line combinations in 3 weeks for Syracuse. Granted, injury causes that because of Mack and his right foot, but that's not the lack of continuity you want. Then again, it could get worse. You could be replacing 2 guys, but it's just one. The issue is it's at left tackle. And if there's 2 guys you want being the same every week, it's your left tackle and your center. So, Josh Miller was supposed to be Austin Collins' backup at center. Came in at left tackle today, ahead of Cam Pringle, by the way. So, seems like that's maybe their 6th best lineman this week. So that is something to watch out for, especially if Mack's not ready for Clemson. Fran mentioned November in conference play, so maybe that is the timetable on Mack. If so, Josh Miller, you've got a lot ahead of you, buddy.
They love Josh Miller.
Yeah.
And Austin Collins, I was talking to him a little bit after the game. He said the big thing was the 2-minute drills they work on in practice that allowed them to finally get in that rhythm. And that's when Angeli looked the best, just bing, bang, boom in that 2-minute drill, finally seeing how sharp he could be as a quarterback. But Collins said they're really high. I would expect a teammate to say this, but we've heard a lot about Josh Miller. Transfers in, big-name school. There's a number of big-name schools, Bama, Florida State, Louisville, that's on that offensive line. But that's now a concern. I'm with you. I'm back in observation mode. I still think there's a lot of size and talent in that offensive line. I think that's still a good problem to have with the number of guys there. But now you're eating away at the depth injury wise. It's I honest admission from Fran there, saying, look, you remember November. I need my team healthy in conference play, right? An honest admission from a coach, and he was very careful to stress this is nothing against UConn or anybody on the schedule, but I need my guys when it matters most. So he's got to think about that with Mack and not rush him back on the field with a foot injury. Devin Grant tried out his injured leg in pregame before they put the pads on, was not in pads. You don't put Devin Grant out there until you absolutely need to. With Colgate coming up, I think you can win that game without some of these names we're mentioning and some others that were out as well. So interesting injury notes there, especially with an offensive line that's, had its issues, as you've mentioned, in the first couple of weeks of the season here. Our colleague Chris Carlson unearthed a really interesting nugget, and I don't want to give it all away because Chris is writing a story about this, so make sure you check that out on syracuse.com. But at halftime, speaking of the offensive line, Big Spoon, Demetrius Weatherspoon, Steve Angeli, and Deion Tank Wilson on the defensive line asked the coaches to leave at halftime. And I don't think we got the full message in there, even on a podcast. I don't know if I'd want to share some R-rated language that was probably shared in that room. But the message from Spoon was like, if we stick together, we're going to win this game. Like, back each other up. We've got to bond together in this locker room. So, again, Chris will have more details on that in his story, so make sure you check that out. But interesting to say, hey, coaches, we got this. Let us handle it. And I'm glad that Spoon was willing to share that. Those are the cool things people love hearing about comebacks like this.
No, absolutely. And sometimes, it's not even sometimes, anyone that's won a championship at any level always says a championship team has to be player-led. We've heard Fran Brown say that. Is Syracuse ACC championship contender? No. But you've got to start establishing that precedent, right, and establishing that culture. And at some point, as players, you've got to tell each other, there's nothing the coaches can do for us. We're the ones out on that field. We have to make the plays. It doesn't matter what they're calling. We've got to go do it. And sometimes to get that message across here, you got to, hey, coach, go ahead and step outside for me real quick. Let me handle this. So props to Spoon and the locker room leaders for that, because, I mean, without that, you might be looking at an 0-2 Syracuse team.
And there's a big difference between 1-1 and 0-2. Yeah. And I know that best laid plans get tossed aside sometimes, but in every scenario where you're thinking Syracuse gets over the finish line for a bowl game, can have a conversation about being a 7-win team, you had to bank this as a win. Connecticut's one you got to get in your back pocket, especially at home. And they came that close to it not happening, but they are 1-1, not 0-2. 0-2 hole. You beat Colgate. Clemson had a little trouble tonight with Troy. As we speak, that game is still going on, and Clemson has taken the lead over Troy, so we'll see where that ends up, but that's not an easy trip to Death Valley, no matter how this game ends up tonight. If anything, it's going to wake Clemson up, no matter what the end result is going to be, and that is going to be a tough matchup one way or the other. Maybe not as intimidating as you thought going down to Death Valley, but Syracuse struggled with UConn here for 3.5 quarters. Like I said, it's a tall order no matter how you look at it going down to Clemson.
Yeah, no, Clemson has fallen in my weekly power rankings, and definitely in the AP poll. It looks like I was wrong on the Tigers. Now maybe there's
so many pros on that team.
Yeah,
sometimes that's something, that's only
get
part
it.
of the
Maybe
recipe,
they
right?
blow my socks off in this second half, but I'm with you. Struggling to Troy is rough work.
It's an
But I do. While we're speaking of other programs, you got to give UConn its credit. What Jim Moore has been able to do over there. 9 wins last season, and he said it. He did not think last year's game against Syracuse, despite it being a 7-point game, was close at all. He chalked it up to a garbage time touchdown. For his boys to come out and play like that today, and play as hard as they have since he's gotten there, hats off to him, because I covered Temple while UConn still played football in the American, and that program was headed nowhere fast. Like going independent was needed for them, really. So hats off to what he's been able to accomplish over there. Seriously.
That's a great point. Shout out to him. And that's not easy. That's an independent, as you mentioned. You're not in a conference. You got to put that schedule together. They went 9-4 a year ago. They were, they put the nail in the coffin of why Carolina had to make the change and bring in Belichick. And obviously that did not get off to a very good start against TCU, but we'll see what they're like when they come to the Dome on Halloween. That team plays tough. There was a huge portion of this game, frankly, that UConn was pushing Syracuse around and was the tougher, more physical team out there. Skylar Bell's a great player. What do you end up with today? Skylar Bell, 11 catches, 105 yards, all over the field. A guy who turned down bigger money from Michigan to stay at UConn because he wanted to play with his quarterback, Joe Fagnano, and continue to build something at UConn and be a part of that. So big shout out to Jim Mora Jr. for sure.
We saw Fran talking to Bell for a little bit after that game. Like, hey, man, you gave us some problems today. Keep going what you're doing. So, yeah, Huskies played a good 3 quarters of football. And then that fourth quarter, the one that counts the most, just went downhill.
They put Demetrius on Bell. They put who else guarded him? There's like
Greg Delane got some burn.
Greg Delane got some burn. Kerr was on him at times. I thought I saw 1 or 2 others out there on it, but no matter who they put on Skylar Bell today, it was not happening. All right, Javon, let's see what the people had to say about this one. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders were certainly fired up about this one. A lot of mea culpas in there too. The text line at one point, Javon, like when I look at my screen on the text line, I can see about 20 texts at a time. There were several points where all I saw was the name Ricky Collins, right? They were calling for Collins. They were reacting, the up and down roller coaster that this is. That's what the text line's for, my friends. To be a Syracuse Sports Insider and get direct text message access to me, blow off some steam. Send the text. What's going on? Ask good questions. Your insight, your analysis, your questions, what you want us to ask players and coaches. That's what it's all about, being a Syracuse Sports Insider. And you, yes, you, get exclusive voice on this podcast show. And I am very excited to hear what you guys had to say. Let's dig into it. Robbie T says, good teams find a way to win. Great teams find a way to put it all together. Our third of a dart effort today gave us a chance to do that, even if Syracuse still has a lot of work to do. Jason M. says, credit the defense, but give a lot of credit to special teams as well. Sure, Syracuse missed a long field goal, but Jack Stonehouse is a serious weapon, and those boys were laying some hits out there. Javon, it was refreshing to see Syracuse get one on special teams. UConn fumbled a punt today. Stonehouse was great. They did miss a field goal. Trip Woody is still, I mean, a 48-yarder, again, not easy, but still easing his way in there. But you can't say that special teams cost you a game. And an interesting nugget, Dave Jacobs was out there on the field today. We had heard in camp and seen camp. I've talked to Dave a little bit about this too. So for those of you who don't know, Dave Jacobs, a former Syracuse kicker, went to the NFL for a bit. For a long time, ran a shop on Marshall Street, Shirt World, and never set foot in the Dome because he was always working on game day. So today, his first game in the Dome, and he picked a hell of a one to go to, and he was on the field before the game in a coaching shirt, consulting with the kickers. So maybe we'll see more from Dave Jacobs in that department going forward. From Bruce D, who says Syracuse led for 47 seconds of game time this season, and he says a win is a win. I got a stress test, though, didn't it, Javon? It's true. This will go down as a win here, but you're also running sprints after the game, which, shows you what a win is a win can mean, but with a little bit of an asterisk attached to it, right?
You know what makes it worse? You're on a short week, which means tomorrow is not an off day. Tomorrow is film, recovery, and back on the practice field. And you're back on the field Monday. You're back on the field Tuesday. Fran might give them an off day either Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe Tuesday. Practice Wednesday. Walk through Thursday. But either way, they are right back at it very soon for a Friday night game. I don't know how that made national television. That's going to get some real poor ratings. But it does not get better if you are a player on that team. You're going to be exhausted. Week.
It will, but I get what, and John Wildhack actually talked about that this week. When you play a Friday night game, you're one of the only shows in town, college football-wise. So the sickos will be there. The junkies will be there, right? Syracuse, Colgate, they'll find a way to bet on it. Friday night game, one of the only Friday night games out there, because as Syracuse has put on their own social media, the clicks count. You get judged and get paid partially based on what your ratings are, how you show on television, right? That was Florida State was making a lot of noise about that when they were threatening to leave the league, saying, look at these ratings we get. Look at what we're doing for you. We're not getting enough in return. Well, now that's literally built into the contract. So you had Tennessee on ABC against Ohio State, Texas. So not getting a big check from that one, unfortunately, and the game turned into a big score. This game was on ESPN Plus, if you could find it, and ACC Network on a Friday night. At least you're one of the only games on. Someone's going to find it, but not going to get a big check from this one either.
Going up against Colorado and a good Big 12 matchup of Kansas State against Arizona. So I'm interested to see what the ratings look like for Friday night. I really am. But we don't talk about ratings on this show. We talk football.
That's right. Gary says, thank God Fran knew to stick with Angeli. We lose if he switches quarterbacks there. Angeli was bad today, but switching to Collins wouldn't have been the answer. Lots of concerns long-term. I don't think you could definitively say they lose if that happens. It's hard for a quarterback to, get going, but Steve Angeli did it himself. He came into a college football playoff game, drove him down the field. I've seen the backup come in and light the world on fire many, many times. So just to definitively say they lose if you put Collins in, I don't know if you could say that. I mean, credit to Angeli for digging himself out of that hole, but I wouldn't say that is definitively there.
And we have not seen Ricky Collins play a game. Didn't even see him play in the spring game because of the thumb injury. So
that's a good point.
I would just ask, how do you know what Ricky Collins can and can't do? That's all.
I think Jack feels the same way a lot of people do out there. I'm torn on how I feel after this game. On one hand, I'm happy that they won. On the other, a loss would have been quite a learning experience. Concerned they will leave this game complacent. Well, I think the sprints at the end of that game changed that tone, my man. From Christian, who says, honestly, felt like this team grew so much in the second half, would have been very easy to give up, but to battle back like that in all facets of the game was impressive. And as he notes, there's a big difference between 1-1 and 0-2 with the upcoming schedule. I want to say this carefully, Javon. I don't give teams brownie points for not giving up. You're not supposed to give up. You're supposed to play all 4 quarters until the clock is over. I don't give credit for that. There is a way, though, that you play through situations like that. You play the game that shows how you're coached, how you practice. It's instilled in you. the tough moments when for 3.5 quarters you're getting pushed around, you're being out physicaled, and to just hold your composure, stay with it, support each other, keep your head in the game, not get rattled. It's an emotional game. Adrenaline and emotions go up and down. That's what I will credit this team for. I will not credit a team for not giving up because you're not supposed to give up. It's sports. Like, no one loves a quitter. So I get what people are saying there, but I think it's the way you play in those spots that matter. And Syracuse, under Fran Brown, to their credit, has passed that test every single time, including today.
Yeah, I've seen some coaches whose players would have given up on them in a game like that. So I understand where they're coming from. But, yeah, like you said, I've got my uncle in the other room. His sister, my mother used to always tell me and my brother, you don't get rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do. You get rewarded for going above and beyond. So I'm with you on this one, Professor Ant.
There you go. I love it. Glenn B., a couple more here, says, refuse to lose. Great job by Syracuse to win. When you're not playing up to par offensively until there was about 6 minutes showing to make up those 11 points. And I like how my friend Jeff framed this. Jeff the reactionary. Angeli delivered in the end, and it just may pay dividends, but we can't imagine down the road. This is why Fran Brown coaches, and I just complain. Okay, put that, Jeff.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think Fran would be very happy if more fans said that right there. This is why he coaches and why they complain. That would make his day.
Steve rides the roller coaster during games more than anybody. He uses a lot of exclamation points, but he was happy after this one. Phew! 0-2 would have been really bad with Clemson 2 weeks out. They have a lot of work, a lot of things to work on, but we should be proud of getting this W. UConn was tough competition, and Frankie F. takes us home with this. That's called winning ugly. Got to give the team props for fighting till the end, but Fran does have a lot of things to fix moving forward. And I want to end on that note, Javon. It's week 2, going into week 3, short week, as you noted. Colgate, I think, affords you the opportunity to, get right, to fix some things, recalibrate a bit before you get into Clemson. So after a couple of weeks, is it the offensive line that shoots to the top of your concern list here? When people say they got to fix this, what do you think is at the top of the priority list?
I mean, the O-line is the easiest way to go, but also, you got to go with the whole offense. Yasin Willis told me today, you got to fix these slow starts, man. Cannot keep starting off so slow. Players and coaches just have to get on the same page at an earlier point in the game. Right? If I'm Fran Brown, so he told us, he had told the team, if he does not like what he sees, they're running. Sometime in the second quarter or whatever that was. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to hold true to his word. I'd make that threat again. Friday, I'd say, hey, if defense doesn't come out with a 3-and-out on the first drive, and the offense doesn't come out with 7 on its first drive, we're running at the end of this game. That would be my challenge. You've already showed them you're not bluffing. Go lay that challenge out there for them. Colgate has to be a complete 180. You've got to come out, score on your first drive, not even a field goal, 7. Go get 7 on your first drive and go get a stop on the defense's first drive, period.
I would agree. That's what I would put at the top of my list at this point, the slow starts. You can't, and this was a problem for this team last year, and they won 10 games. They figured it out, but last week you're down 17-0. This week it was no score at the end of the first quarter, but you got to know what time the game is. You got to be ready to play. I get it. You need a series or two sometimes just to get the rust off, work the kinks out. Noon games can be a tough ride. They listed 39,000 at the game today. The crowd did eventually get into it. The crowd was tested at times. There were some people leaving early in the fourth quarter, which that's your choice. I get it. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen it my whole life. I don't think I'm ever going to see it stop, unfortunately. But listen, you got to play the first quarter too. I know the fourth quarter matters, and overtime is when Steve Angeli came through. But they put points on the board in the first quarter. That matters. You got to be ready to come out and deliver then and put somebody else on their heels. That matters too. Yeah. So I would agree with that. And they got a short week to fix it, Javon. So remember, Friday Night Lights, Syracuse and Colgate at the JMA Wireless Dome. We will have this very post-game show for you again following that game. I don't like to say these things until I know they're in the can, but we've got some guests coming up on the pod this week. I think you guys will enjoy, scheduled, as they say, across the pond, scheduled to come on the pod that I'm excited to chat with, and I think you guys will enjoy. So please subscribe, like, follow on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So not only can you check out our live post-game show here, but listen and watch on demand whenever you want. One more point of order, Javon, before we go. We've been waiting all week for Sunday night. The Bills, the Ravens. Big matchup, Sunday night football. You know who I'm rooting for. Javon, rooting for his Ravens. You will be there at the Ralph. First time at that stadium?
First time at the stadium formerly known as Ralph Wilson Stadium. Yes.
I still call it the Ralph. Yeah.
What is it, Highmark Stadium now?
Yeah, they've gone through so many corporate names. It's the Ralph to me. It's the last season. I'm calling it the Ralph.
Ralph Wilson Stadium. I'm with you.
Will you wear Ravens gear?
Yes, I will be in a Lamar Jackson jersey.
Okay.
And then, so got these in our office actually during Mardi Gras. I will have the purple and gold beads on also.
Okay.
So
brave man.
I will not be hard to find. I will be with my uncle, my father, and my little brother, and we are looking forward to another Ravens regular season win. And
enjoy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great game. You and I do not have a formal wager on this. Maybe we'll talk afterwards. Let's see. Put a little something on the line. Who's going to bring the donuts to our weekly meeting?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no gambling.
How about that?
Kids.
Yeah, how about that?
The kids. I can amend that.
I am shocked to find there is gambling going on in this establishment. All right, box of donuts. Well, we don't need a whole box of donuts. Whatever kind of donuts you want to bring for our weekly meeting. On the line.
On the line.
And by the way, you don't have to bring it Monday if you lose. But shout out to Javon. That's a Sunday night game. He's going to be rolling back home probably 4 a.m, and he will be there, I'm sure, in our Monday meeting, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after that ride home. After the Bills beat the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Looking forward to it. Thank you, my friend. Great stuff today, as always, and we will catch you soon. And seriously, have a good time out there. If you need any tips on where to get some good wings or anything, hit up your boy. You know, I'll help you out.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you to everybody watching and listening. Again, please subscribe and follow so you can listen to this pod on demand when you want. But we love that you guys are here live. Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders for their awesome insight as always. Thanks to Krause Health, the official healthcare provider for Syracuse Athletics. For Javon Edmonds, I'm Brent Axe. Syracuse wins. A win is a win. They beat UConn 27-20 in overtime. They're 1-1. Back at it Friday night at the Dome. Uncle Brent's birthday. Just saying. We will talk to you after that game. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, friends. Go Bills!